challenges, we have never pondered who is more challenged. Is it really that student who did not get enough learning time, or is it that student who, despite the fact that they did not have enough learning time, also had challenges in accessing that school? Children with disabilities, first of all, their self-esteem is very low because most of our schools are not accessible to children with disability. You find that some of them are crawling. And imagine yourself crawling to a toilet, which is a pit latrine. Despite all these challenges, they have done KCP, and that KCPE, the grading is the same with those children that did not have challenges. So you find them at times getting 200 marks, not because of their own making, but because of the accessibility factor, because of the self-esteem factor, yet they are graded together with that child who is able-bodied, who ran to school 2 kilometers, he used 30 minutes, but for that disabled student on a wheelchair will use 3 hours. I want to make an appeal, because for secondary school to use affirmative action when admitting students, for those students with disabilities, their grade should be lower than those ones without disabilities because of the challenges that they are facing. I want to appeal to all principals of secondary schools not to turn down or to turn away any student with disability, even if the marks are lower by 10 or 20. Let those students on humanitarian grounds be admitted to secondary schools. We have bursaries, we have wings to fly, we have bursaries from county government, we have bursaries from CDF, we have bursaries from the presidential bursary kit, we also have some scholarship from KCB. I want to tell them, the government have set aside 5% of employment to persons with disabilities. They have set aside 10% of all tenders to persons with disability. This is just a little message to all of you to set aside something for persons with disability. So I want to appeal to all bursary kitties to make sure that 10% of their money goes to persons with disabilities. And for the wings to fly, this is a private institution, equity, but we want to tell you, who really need the wings to fly? Is it that students, those students who can run, or that student who is crawling? Is it that student on their feet, or those students who are on wheelchairs? A student with disability have no plan B. For those students without disabilities, they have so many other options. But for that blind student, for that physically challenged student, for that deaf student, they have no plan B. Please, let us make sure when we are giving scholarship, let us consider those students with disability. Because most of our contractors are from the private sector. But corruption have been because of the government and the private sector. Because it is not the government that does the contracts. It is the private sector that does the contract. So it is people from the private sector that force people from the government to be corrupt. Because if all companies that are applying for tenders from the government refuse to give kickbacks, that work must be done. The tender process must be finished. So they will go ahead and award the tenders to the best binder. In terms of the lowest binder, in terms of the quality of job that is supposed to be, as a public officer and as a private investor, that I will not accept and I will not give bribes. Because we blame the police for receiving bribes. But why don't you blame the person giving out the bribe? It is a war that must be fought by everyone. Okay. So we are through.
approve.
Yeah, we approve.